There is no hard part about being a professional boxer. It's a blessing. And if I wasn't a professional boxer, it'd be a blessing as well. But as I said, wealth comes in character. It's not about status. There's no big difference to what I do that determines who I am. It's just boxing is a blessing because I do it for passion, not for occupation.
Do you know what it is on that ring walk? There's no turning back. There's no if I was that nervous, I think I would dodge a fight. I wouldn't bother training, and like for like 3 months it'll be on my mind and stuff. If I was that nervous, I probably just wouldn't do it. So yeah, on the walkout, it's like, it is what it is now.
Stop scrolling. Pause the timeline. Because somewhere behind locked gym doors, under fluorescent lights and ego-heavy silence, Anthony Joshua just finished the final day of training camp before stepping into the most unhinged boxing crossover of the decade. Yeah, that fight. Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul. Netflix cameras rolling. History sweating, this isn't just about. This is boxing's identity crisis wrapped in pay-per-view money and algorithm addiction. A former heavyweight king sharpening weapons. To fight a YouTuber turned prize fighter who refuses to stop being taken seriously. If this makes traditional boxing fans uncomfortable, good. That's the point. Rumors leaked. Footage whispered about. Training intensity described like something out of a prison montage. People saying AJ looks different. Others saying Jake Paul is too confident. And Netflix? Netflix is treating this like a season finale with blood pressure implications. This isn't Rocky. This isn't YouTube boxing. This is the multiverse collapsing in boxing gloves. One wrong move, and Joshua's legacy gets memed forever. One right punch, and Jake Paul becomes boxing's most dangerous glitch. Either way, somebody's walking out with more than a win. They're walking out with control of the narrative. This countdown isn't ticking. It's threatening. Welcome to Punch Press. The bell hasn't rung yet, but everything's already on the line. The final day of Anthony Joshua's training camp didn't feel like preparation. It felt like a controlled demolition waiting for the button to be pressed. No smiles, no hype speeches. Just silence, sweat, and the unmistakable tension of a man who knows the entire internet is waiting to judge him punch by punch. Because this isn't a normal fight. Weak. This isn't AJ defending a belt against a familiar rival. This is a former heavyweight king stepping into a Netflix-produced circus where one wrong step turns into a lifetime meme. And everybody knows it's Haven if nobody wants to say it out loud. The leak didn't come from a press conference. It never does. It came from whispers. From gym insiders. From shaky clips described but not shown. People saying Joshua looks locked in a way that's different from before. Quieter, colder. Like someone who understands exactly how ugly the consequences could be. If this goes sideways, let's rewind. Because the background is where the discomfort really lives. Anthony Joshua represents old-school boxing royalty. Olympic gold. Unified titles. Global respect. Jake Paul represents the algorithm. Clicks, chaos. A man who turned controversy into a combat sport and refuses to play by the rules that built the sport in the first place, and now those two worlds are colliding under Netflix's logo like a corporate-sponsored thunderstorm. The scandal isn't the fight itself. It's the fact that this is even happening. Boxing purists are still pretending this is a prank that went too far. Meanwhile, the numbers don't lie. Jake Paul sells. Attention follows him like a bad habit. And Netflix doesn't care about tradition, cares about eyeballs and binge-dash worthiness. So when word got out that this was Joshua's final day of camp, a tone shifted. No more jokes. No more easy work comments. Suddenly, people wanted to know if AJ was actually taking this seriously. Spoiler alert, he is, according to those close to the camp. This wasn't celebrity sparring. This wasn't light pad work for the cameras. This was hard rounds, heavy pressure, and a level of focus that suggests Joshua understands the unthinkable is on the table. Because losing to another elite boxer hurts. Losing to Jake Paul rewrites your Wikipedia page in bold font, and Joshua knows it. The irony is painful. For years, AJ has fought to prove he's more than just a marketable bodybuilder with hands. He rebuilt himself after losses, changed trainers, adjusted style, and now, all of that could be overshadowed by one night against a man half the boxing world still refuses to respect. That's why the final day mattered. Observers described it like a movie scene. Netflix didn't leak on purpose. No distractions, no celebrity visitors, no motivational speeches for social media. Just work. The kind of work that suggests Joshua isn't trying to entertain, he's trying to erase a threat. Jake Paul, on the other hand, has been loud, confident, borderline smug, posting clips, cracking jokes, acting like a man who believes the moment belongs to him. And nothing unsettles a traditional fighter more than an opponent who doesn't act scared when he's supposed to be. That contrast alone fueled the tension. Fans immediately split into camps. One side saying this is a glorified sparring session and Joshua ends it whenever he wants. The other side whispering something nobody wants to admit, that Jake Paul only takes fights he thinks he can survive. And sometimes that survival turns into something more dangerous. The internet smelled blood. Memes started early. Photoshops of AJ's belts next to YouTube play buttons. Jokes about Netflix buffering during knockdowns. But underneath the humor was nervous energy. Because boxing has been embarrassed before, and nobody wants to relive it on the biggest streaming platform in the world, the final day of camp became symbolic, not just of readiness, but of risk. Every punch thrown in that gym carried the weight of public opinion. Every adjustment hinted at strategy. People asked whether Joshua was training for power or patience, aggression or control. Because against Jake Paul, brute force isn't enough. You have to manage the moment. That's the part casual fans miss. Joshua isn't just fighting Jake, he's fighting the narrative. The crowd that wants chaos. The clips waiting to go viral. The idea that boxing's gatekeepers can be outmaneuvered by someone who understands attention better than footwork, and Netflix knows exactly what it's doing. This isn't marketed like a fight. It's marketed like an event, a countdown, a final chapter, cameras lingering, music swelling. The kind of presentation that makes everything feel bigger than it already is. The kind that adds pressure even elite athletes feel in their bones. Which brings us back to that final day. No bravado, no trash talk, just a heavyweight alone with his thoughts, preparing to defend not a title, but a legacy. Because win or lose, this fight will be remembered. And Joshua knows that better than anyone. If he dominates, critics will say it was expected. If he struggles, they'll say boxing is broken. If the unthinkable happens, there'll be no spin strong enough to save him. That's why this camp ended in silence. Not because Joshua is afraid, but because he understands what's at stake. When you're the bigger name, the burden is always heavier. And when your opponent thrives on chaos, discipline becomes your only shield. This wasn't the end of training, it was the end of excuses. And as the doors closed on that gym for the final time, one truth settled in heavy: the fight hasn't happened yet. But the pressure already has. The moment word spread that Joshua's camp had officially closed. The internet did what it always does when fear and entertainment collide, panicked, joked, argued, and refreshed non-stop. This wasn't just a fight countdown anymore. This became a cultural stress test. Because the closer this gets, the harder it is to pretend this is just a gimmick. Boxing Twitter went absolutely feral. One half of the platform swore This ends in 2 rounds, maximum, with Joshua reminding everyone why weight classes exist for a reason. The other half leaned into the chaos, whispering the sentence nobody wants to say out loud. What if Jake actually lands something? And just like that, the mood shifted from confident to cautious. Memes exploded like they were on a production schedule. Anthony Joshua photoshopped into Netflix thumbnails with dramatic taglines. Jake Paul edited into classic Rocky scenes like he's been there the whole time. Jokes about buffering screens during knockdowns. Jokes about boxing purists fainting mid-fight. Laughter masking anxiety because deep down, everyone understands how ugly this could get if things go. Off-script.celebrities couldn't resist weighing in. Fighters, influencers, former champions. Some dismissed it as a circus. Others gave cautious respect to Jake's preparation. A few danced around the truth with statements like anything can happen in boxing, which is code for I don't want this clip used against me later. And Jake Paul, thriving. Absolutely thriving. While Joshua went quiet, Jake went louder. Training clips. Slow motion punches. Stare-down videos designed to look cinematic and slightly unhinged. He moved like a man who believes momentum matters more than credentials. And that confidence, real or manufactured, started to get under people's skin. Because confidence is contagious, fans began arguing about the rules. The gloves, the rounds, the format, any variable that could tilt the playing field even an inch. Boxing analysts broke down scenarios like they were planning for a natural disaster. What if Joshua starts slow? What if Jake survives the early rounds? What if the crowd turns? Netflix didn't help. Every teaser felt dramatic enough to raise blood pressure. Every promo leaned into the idea that this is bigger than a fight, bigger than sport, bigger than common sense. The kind of buildup that makes you wonder whether they're documenting a win or a disaster. The outraged crowd arrived right on time. Traditionalists accusing the sport of selling its soul. Purists threatening to never watch boxing again while still tweeting about it every hour. Meanwhile, casual fans loved it. Because controversy is more accessible than technique, and Jake Paul knows exactly how to invite them in. The comparisons got wild. People called this boxing's Avengers-level crossover. Others said it's more like a horror movie where you scream at the screen because the character is clearly walking into danger. Someone joked this is less Rocky and more Final Destination, where Legacy keeps narrowly escaping doom. What escalated things further was how split the confidence became. Normally, when an elite fighter faces a novelty opponent, the narrative is unified. Not this time. Too many people remembered past sure things that went sideways. Too many people remembered how quickly the internet turns legends into punchlines. Joshua's silence became its own storyline. Some saw it as professionalism. Others saw it as pressure. Every day without a quote made people speculate about nerves, strategy, or something darker. The man wasn't giving anyone content, and that drove the algorithm crazy. Jake, meanwhile, kept poking. Not directly insulting Joshua, but poking the sport. Questioning gatekeepers. Mocking critics. Playing the villain role so comfortably, it started to feel less like an act, and more like a personality trait. The fight stopped being about who's better. It became about what boxing is willing to risk. Legacy versus leverage. Craft versus clout. Discipline versus disruption. And Netflix sat in the middle like a producer smiling while the drama writes itself. Even former champions were divided. Some laughed it off. Others warned Joshua that this kind of fight requires emotional control as much as physical dominance. You don't just beat Jake Paul, you neutralize the moment. You make it boring. And boring doesn't trend. That's the danger. Joshua has the skills to win. Everyone knows that. But does he have the patience to deny chaos? Because Jake doesn't need to outbox him for 12 rounds. He just needs one moment, one clip, one swing that changes the conversation forever. The public started counting days like it was a launch sequence. Each countdown post felt heavier, each debate louder, each prediction more aggressive. People weren't just watching anymore, they were bracing. This wasn't just about Anthony Joshua fighting Jake Paul. This was about whether boxing controls its future, or gets dragged into the algorithm, kicking and screaming. And as the noise reached a fever pitch, one thing became impossible to ignore. Nobody was calm anymore, which usually means something unforgettable is coming, as the countdown tightens and the noise refuses to die down. The real consequences start to come into focus. Not punches, not knockouts, but impact. Because this fight is already rewriting careers before the bell ever rings. And somebody is going to feel it long after the cameras shut off. For Anthony Joshua, this isn't about proving he can beat Jake Paul. That's the bare minimum. This is about proving he can survive the moment without letting it hijack his legacy. Heavyweight champions are supposed to age into reverence, not gamble their reputation in algorithm-driven spectacles. And yet, here he is standing at the edge of a fight that could either remind the world who he is, or reduce years of dominance into a punchline. That's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody wants to sit with Dot, because if Joshua wins clean, decisively, brutally, the reaction won't be applause. It'll be dismissal. Of course, he won. That's what was supposed to happen. Boxing will move on like nothing happened, except it did. He still took the risk. He still stepped into the chaos. And risk doesn't refund itself just because the outcome went right. But if he struggles, if he hesitates, if Jake Paul survives longer than expected or lands anything that looks competitive, the narrative flips instantly, not slowly. Instantly, suddenly, everything Joshua's rebuilt gets questioned again. His confidence, his evolution, his decision-making. The internet doesn't do nuance in moments like this, and if the unthinkable happens, there won't be enough PR on Earth to contain it. Jake Paul's side of the equation is the opposite. For him, this is upside only. He's already won by standing here. He's already forced boxing royalty to acknowledge him as more than a joke. Every round he survives adds value. Every clean shot he lands multiplies his influence. He doesn't need to win, he just needs to disrupt. And disruption is his entire brand. That's why the stakes feel so lopsided. One man is defending a decade of credibility. The other is chasing immortality through controversy. That imbalance creates pressure that no training camp can fully prepare you for. Behind the scenes, the industry is watching closely. Promoters, networks, fighters, everyone wants to see what happens when legacy collides with leverage. Because if this works, if the numbers explode, if the conversation dominates, then this won't be the last time a crossover like this gets greenlit. This becomes a blueprint. That possibility alone has boxing purists sweating. Relationships shift after moments like this. Allies become critics. Critics become opportunists. Fighters who once avoided these events start reconsidering. Because money talks and Netflix speaks loudly. The sport doesn't just change in the ring, changes in boardrooms. Public perception is already evolving. Casual fans don't care about resumes. They care about moments. And this fight has already delivered one before it even happens. That scares traditionalists more than any punch ever could. Joshua's demeanor in the final hours before the fight will matter. Every look, every walk, every answer. Because people aren't just watching to see if he wins. They're watching to see if he belongs in this version of boxing. The one where spectacle and skill share the same stage, Jake Paul. Meanwhile, will walk in like he owns the place. That's his advantage. No fear of embarrassment. No history to protect. Just momentum and the audacity to believe the impossible is negotiable. The aftermath, no matter the result, will be loud. If Joshua dominates, he'll regain control, but the question will linger. Was it worth it? Did he gain anything beyond relief? Or did he just survive a storm he didn't need to enter? If Jake overperforms, the sport enters dangerous territory. Because the next crossover won't feel like a novelty, it'll feel inevitable. And suddenly, the line between influencer and contender gets blurrier than ever. That's why this fight feels bigger than it should. It's not about belts. It's not about rankings. It's about who controls the future of attention in boxing. Netflix didn't accidentally choose this matchup. They chose tension. They chose uncertainty. They chose a story where someone has to lose more than a decision as the final hours approach. One thing becomes painfully clear. This isn't a joke anymore. This isn't a gimmick. This is a collision. And when collisions happen at this speed, somebody always walks away changed. The bell hasn't rung yet. But whatever happens next, boxing won't look the same after it does. And now that the countdown is breathing down everyone's neck and denial is no longer an option, it's your turn to step into the chaos. Drop your verdict in the comments right now. Is Anthony Joshua about to restore order and remind the world why heavyweight boxing still matters? Or is Jake Paul about to flip the sport on its head and turn legacy into a Netflix subplot? No fence-sitting, pick a side and stand on it. If this breakdown had your heart rate climbing, smash that like button like it owes you training camp money and skipped leg day. Don't tap it, gently hit it with heavyweight intent. And if you're not subscribed yet, that's a risky choice. Because this channel doesn't miss when sports, spectacle, and scandal collide. Turn on notifications too. Because these moments don't come with warning labels. One punch, one clip, one headline, and the entire narrative flips overnight. When it does, you'll want to be here before the hot takes cool off and the internet rewrites history. This is where fights get dissected. Hype gets exposed, and legacies don't get protected just because they're comfortable. If it's controversial, high stakes, or feels like the sport is holding its breath, we're already locked in, so stay sharp. Stay skeptical. Stay ready. Because the bell doesn't just start fights. It starts consequences. This is Punch Press, and when the gloves touch, the truth swings back. And when the gloves touch, the truth swings back.